Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I am Bhavesh from SwiftALM Product Management. Today I'll be demonstrating the enhancements that have been shipped as part of the 3.0 release. The new features and enhancement in this release will greatly benefit the configurators who spend a lot of time in transferring configurations from one environment to another and set up the dashboard widgets. Along with these key enhancements, we'll quickly go over the list of other usability enhancements that were shipped as part of this release. Before we begin, we would like to assure you that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with all those who have registered for this session. And we would certainly love to hear from you. So please type in your questions in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen anytime during the webinar so that we can take up those questions at the end. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So like I said, the main theme for this release is to improve the entire process of configuration for our configurators. So the main time which is spent by a configurator in transferring configuration from one environment to another, how that has been simplified through the new smart import, we will have a look at that. We'll also look at the new item status widget setting page, which has been completely redone, so that it's much easier to set up the item status widget. We'll also look at the new feature which allows you to see a trend line on all kinds of dashboard widgets which you have plotted inside the application. On the mobile front, we'll look at some of the updates that have improved the notifications, the search capabilities, and typical swipe down to refresh on your work item list. Apart from that, we have other enhancements in the area of inbox, homepage, start, and general application. So we'll go over these at the end of the webinar. So to get started with the session, we'll first look at the smart import. So typically what a configurator would do is that based on the requirements given by the business team, they would go about configuring, modeling inside our application, and they would ensure that all those changes are working as expected on typically their test environment. Now once those configuration changes have been done on the test environment and have been approved, they need to be ported to the production environment where the end user can start using it. So this process is typically a very time consuming process because the configurator would need to remember all the changes that have been done from the past configuration, particularly what has been added, modified, and deleted in the configuration XLS, and then ensure that they are also happening on the production environment. So this entire process was not only time consuming, but it was prone to human error because you're bound to have many checklists to ensure that all the things that you have done on your test environment also get done on your production environment. So we have tried to get rid of that process completely. We said that there is no need to manually provide all these add, modify, delete operation in the configuration XLS. The system itself will automatically detect the changes, and based on the differences that it sees on the current environment and the XLS which is being imported. So the system takes care of that, and of course it presents it to the configurator so that he can go over all the changes that have been detected and confirm that yes, these changes are in fact accurate and they need to be imported into the system. So this entire process has been automated, and while he is going through this process, we have given an option to download the configuration with the add, modify, delete action so that he can go about sharing it with any of his colleagues or seniors for approval, or he may want to just do a intermediate save or abort the import action. So all those options are also possible so that the entire configuration process is easy and not as time consuming or error prone as it was earlier. So to help you understand how this has made things easier, I'll take up a scenario and also show you how that is happening inside the application. So here we are looking at let's say a risk key form, and what I have here is a detailed segment which has impact, risk stage, and the cost impact field. And on my right hand side, the risk analysis segment, which is typically a SwiftALM segment, it has a risk trend table, and inside that risk trend table I have a risk source column, risk exposure column, and risk index column, all with their own attributes. Now based on the business needs, I am wanting to make certain changes to this configuration. So as a configurator, I go about making these changes. I change the name of the field from impact to impact probability. I decide to delete the risk stage, change the mandatory attribute for cost impact to no, and introduce a new field called org risk ID. Similarly, on the SwiftForms table, I have decided to change the name to stage detected, delete the risk exposure column, change the data type for my risk index column to integer, and introduce a new column called probability. Now all these changes, typically one would need to remember, make sure he has noted down all these changes, and when he goes to the production environment, he would require these changes to be applied so that he gets the final configuration like this, where it only has the impact probability, cost impact, org risk ID, stage detected, risk index, and probability as per his configuration requirements. So this is the final state that he's meant to achieve on the production environment. Now this would be the final state on the test environment as well. So in order to make use of this configuration directly, what we have done is that the configurator can export this configuration directly and import it on the destination environment, and on the destination environment through smart import, the system will automatically detect all these types of changes that we just made on the test environment. So let me switch into the application now. So for this purpose, what I've done is I will go to an environment which I've configured for this scenario. I'll go to my maintenance process template. I'll go to eForm configuration, and I'll select the risk keyform here and say export. Now this is the risk keyform where I have already done the changes that I wanted to port to my production environment. So let's assume the other environment which I have here is the production environment, and here too I will go to my maintenance process template. I'll go to the eForm configuration and select the risk keyform. And here you would see that there is a new icon called Smart Import. Now this icon is right next to the import option. So if you still want to go about importing like you used to do earlier, you can still do that. But the Smart Import will, like I said, automatically detect the changes. So I'll select the file which I had exported from my source environment and say next. And this is the screen which it will show up right up front. So the screen is designed to show you all the changes that are happening through this XLS. It will first present you the delete and the rename changes, and then it will show you the additions and modifications that are happening to the configuration. So first I have been shown the list of fields or columns or entities that those are getting deleted as part of this process. So here in this case I had chosen to rename my impact field to impact probability. So I'll select the user action as rename and select the new name as impact probability. Now the drop down gets automatically populated with the new fields which are seen in the XLS the moment I select rename. So that's what is happening automatically in the background. Similarly, the risk stage field I had chosen to delete, so I'll keep it as delete. The risk source field I had chosen to rename to stage detected, so I'm selecting stage detected here. For risk exposure I had chosen to delete it, so I'll select delete. So those are the field and SwiftForm segment changes which I had shown you, and like I said, some I've chosen to rename and some I've chosen to delete. Now I've also added a table called impact in this case, and here just to demonstrate how it works, if I have a parent level entity, like in this case a table entity, the details link will be available, and clicking on that will show you all the sub entities which are part of that table which will get deleted. So in this case, I have only configured a column called normalized impact. So those are the columns which will get deleted when I choose to delete this impact table. If I choose to rename it and say next, what it would do is it will go about checking if the parent entity had any other sub-entities which have been deleted or renamed. So the same window gets refreshed and it tells me there are new rows that have been detected for deletion and rename. And like we saw, the normalized impact is a new column which has been identified to be renamed. So in this case, I'll select rename here and I'll choose a new name as normalized effect, which has been given in the XLS to be imported. So in this manner, I am presented with all the changes that have been done on the XLS. In this case, the deletions have been presented. So all those entries or all the entities which are not present on the current environment but are present in the XLS, those are being shown as deleted. If I go about selecting next, now these are the entities which are shown as added and modified. So here under the add row, you will get to see all those which have been added. So org risk ID has been automatically detected, has been added, so is probability, and so is a column called QA inside my rules segment. Similarly, for my modification, the cost impact has been modified, so I can click on the details link and see that the value mandatory has been changed from Y to N as part of this change. And similarly for risk index, the values have been changed, the data type has been changed from string to integer. If there is any change in position, that too is also highlighted here. So the details link will help me understand what are the changes which are happening as part of the entity, especially the parent level entities will show you all the details which are getting changed as part of this addition. So this is how the deletions, additions and modifications are presented to the configurator. Of course, we have taken a simple example to demonstrate how all these kind of changes are presented to the configurator, but if you have several e-forms being imported at the same time with a lot of configurations, especially the Swift forms, all that will be presented to you in a similar structure. They will be grouped by the work item type, then they will be grouped by the deletions, additions and modifications. So that's how the configurator gets full visibility of the changes being done through the smart import. And like I said, if he wants to come back at a later stage or download this changes, he can do that. Now, the downloaded XLS is something which is prepared keeping in mind all the changes that are happening. They are also getting registered here. So in this case, if I choose to see what are the changes that are happening as part of this, so I can see that my risk stage field has been deleted, my impact field has been modified, my cost impact field has been modified. So all the changes which are happening, which I've saved as part of the configuration so far, are being recorded here as add, modify, delete. Now I can choose to share this XLS just for reference purpose before I go ahead with the import, or I can abort this import operation altogether and probably add something which I missed out on. So I can still do that in this XLS and reuse this XLS for normal import. But we presume that won't be the case most of the time. So you will go ahead with the next option here. And finally, you would be presented with the option to import the XLS. So this XLS which gets generated is auto-selected. The user doesn't have to select it again. And you can choose from the different modes of pushing the changes back into the system for this import operation to be completed. So this process remains the same. In fact, the underlying import functionality remains the same. What we have done as part of this enhancement or this big new feature is the smart import automatically is helping configurator detect all the changes. So if in case the configurator has missed out on any of the changes by chance, all that will be presented to him via the screen. So the chances of any human error go down drastically, and the overall process or the time taken to complete this has also reduced drastically because of this smart import. So that's how you will reach the final stage of configuration even on your production environment. You simply have to export from your source environment that import it on the destination environment, confirm all the changes that need to be done, and you are then good to go. So now we will look at some of the dashboard enhancements which have been done as part of this release. So let me switch to the application again. So the first change I would like you to see here is that of the item status widget settings page. So if you are using the item status widget in our earlier versions, you would notice that setting it up is quite cumbersome. This is how the settings page would look like earlier. You would have to select the E form, then you would have to open another accordion and select the values. If you were using a time series kind of an option, which would help you set up the trend for the incoming data or the close data, now that all of those options were available inside the small box for the columns here. Now this was really difficult for the end users to use, and we appreciate that they have bared with us for so long, but now we have changed that as part of the 3.0 release. So if you now go to your item status widget, setting it up is really easy. So let me add a new item status widget. So the moment I click on the settings, what you would see here is that all the settings for the item status widget are shown upfront. There is no ambiguity on what was selected in one of the earlier segments, like in the case of the accordion approach which we had taken earlier. All the settings are visible to you, and there is a dedicated area for you to go about selecting the columns and rows for your item status widget. So it clearly denotes you can drag and drop fields here, and you can drag and drop only one row here as part of the item status widget. So setting it up is really simple. Let's say I want to set up the defect inflow for last 6 months. I'll select bar as the type and select defect, and I'll select the time series. Now earlier the time series option, like I showed you, it really was cumbersome to set it up. So what happens now is the time series widget options are presented full screen. The complete real estate has been used. The user can select from what kind of count has to be shown here, whether it is total identified in period or total closed in period. He can go about selecting the date range right from the static or the dynamic options. And if he wants to go back to adding more levels, he can click on the left available fields here and add one more option probably here. Let's say drill down to the item name, and if required, you can have another row for the current user. So that's how easy it is to set up item status widget page. This is similar to the functionality is completely the same. It is just that we have made it simpler for you to set it up. Now, one of the other changes which has also been done as part of this release is that you have also cleaned up the other metric kind of widgets where you would spend time configuring for your deviation metrics or process metrics. So the application, the settings page for these kind of widgets has also been changed. So let me quickly show you that as part of this. So in this case, what I've done is I've opened up the effort deviation metric here. So if I go to the settings page here, here too you will see that all the settings have completely been aligned and out so that it's much easier to read. The mandatory fields are now evident, and you can go about making the selection for setting up the metric widgets much more easily. So as part of the changes as well, what we have done is we have introduced a new option to see the trend line. Now typically one would plot a widget to look at the trend data, whether it is based on releases, whether it is based on the trend which we just saw. One would require a certain sense of understanding of how the data is progressing in terms of the trend. So the linear progression gets shown here as part of the widget. You will see that the moment I've selected the option, it shows you a trend line for, in this case, the effort deviation phase-wise. So I can make a judgment that yes, the trend for the effort deviation does go down as the number of as the project progresses through the various stages of the project. So all that can be seen here. In fact, you can see the first starting point of the trend line and the end point of the trend line as well as part of this trend line visibility. So this option of trend line is available on all kinds of widgets. It is not limited to only metric widgets. Like I said, if you are wanting to plot widget for time series and an item status, even that is possible. So for example, if you what I've done here is I've plotted data for item status component. I'll say ticket inflow in last 6 months. Ticket as the e-form. I'll select the time series as the option here. And since I'm wanting to look at the inflow, I'll select total identified in period and select dynamic period as from last, let's say, 12 months to the current month, and save this. Now if I choose to look at much more data here for the last, let's say, 12 months and also select the option trend line, you'll see that the ticket inflow has increased drastically. I'll change the time period to months so that you are able to get a sense of the ticket inflow in the past 12 months. So you'll see that the ticket inflow has been steady between 140 and 160 somewhat. So this gives you a sense of how the ticket inflow has been happening in the last 12 months. So this gives you a good judgment of that. Like we saw that you are able to set up the item status component easily, as well as you are able to see the trend line on the item status component. So this option to see the trend line is just not limited to your metric widgets where you would see data in a time series or in a trending manner. It can be used even on your item status components. So in fact, if you have configured any ECR based widgets, we have given a new literal called show trend line function. So this function will help you show that trend line for your custom ECR widgets as well. So that's how we have improved our dashboard widget configuration and given an ability to see the trend line on all kinds of widgets which are there in the application. So I'll now switch to our mobile app to demonstrate the mobile app improvements. What I'm saying here is now you can pull down to refresh your work item list. So that's very simple, and it's like any other app you would have on your mobile. We have reordered the inline actions for your work item. So you would see that the view details and the time entry options are brought foremost, so you can tap on it and look at the details of the work item. Similarly for time entry, those two options have been brought foremost, and this change is applicable even for your web application. So these inline actions will show upfront even on your web app. Another change which we have done to improve your searching is while you are inside the search bar, if you have made any searches recently for the items which you're searching. So right here I've just started typing and it presents me with matching searches which I've done recently on the mobile app. So that helps me so that helps me see the search results quickly. All the options which I have typed earlier which are matching with the keywords which I'm typing in here are shown upfront. So since I have been typing test, so it is presenting with all the recent searches which I had done using the word test, setup, test event, or test in general. So that's how the searching capability has been improved. We are also showing all the search results here now. So if I click on or tap on show more, it enlists all the search results. You are no longer restricted to the top 3 search results shown like earlier, and you can also tap on the search result work item so that you are able to view its details. So all that is possible through the search itself. Now moving on to the draw menu, you will see here that the notifications and broadcast message are shown together. If I have a broadcast message set up on my server, that too will show up in my drawer menu, and tapping on it will show me the broadcast message. So user has to read it and tap on OK before going forward. Similarly, on the notifications front, what we have done here is that we have ensured the ID of the work item is always prefixed to the work item name. The notifications, the unread notifications are shown differently from the read notifications, and here too the user can tap on the notification to view the work item details. So in general, the overall usability of the mobile app has been improved in terms of the searching, the notifications, and the inline actions. Now I'll switch over to the web app. Okay, so we looked at all the mobile app improvements that we have done as part of this release. Now moving on to the other enhancements. So one of the other enhancements we have done as part of this release is to ensure that the pre-route and the pre-reject Swift rules work via our inbox and the new homepage. So we did have post-route and post-reject rules working on inbox and homepage, but pre-route and pre-reject rules are essentially those that help you. I'm sorry for the interruption. So these are the rules which essentially have a better performance compared to the post rules. So we have ensured that these kind of rules also work on the inbox and the homepage. So let me just quickly demonstrate how they will work now. So this is I've configured 3 demo scenarios just to demonstrate the 3 types of route or pre-route or pre-reject rules that will work for my work items from the inbox or this my work items page. So in case of error scenario, when in this case what I've done is there is a field on this defect that tells me that whether the defect has been solved or not. So there is a checkbox. Now this checkbox has to be checked before it is routed through the tester workflow stage. That is the Swift rule that has been configured here. So if I go about routing this again, that validation will work. It will fail because I have not set up any checkbox selection for this work item. So it tells me that you cannot route from the tester stage if the resolve checkbox is unchecked. So this pre-route validation works for the error scenario. For the confirmation scenario where you're wanting the user to confirm something before it gets routed or rejected. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm rejecting this defect. Saying this is not a bug. So it presents me with a screen saying that, are you sure you want to reject this bug with the reason code set as not a bug? So this is just to ensure that there are no invalid rejections happening on the defect. So I'll click OK to process it and make sure that the defect gets rejected, or I click cancel saying that no, I probably want to change the reason code for this work item. So that is how the confirmation pre-route or pre-reject validation would work. And if you have set up a warning, so in this case, what I've said is that a warning message should be shown saying that an email update should be sent every time a critical defect is being routed from the initiator stage. So in this case, if I route it saying, please look into this on priority and route it, it will show me a warning message which just has the OK button on it, saying that an email update to the customer has been scheduled for this critical defect. So all these kinds of validation will work via your home page when you use the inline actions for route and reject, and they would also work from your folder inbox as well. In case of the confirmation scenarios, those still won't work for the inbox. They would lead to a failure of the route or reject which you're trying to do, because there is no pop-up that can be presented for multiple work items that have been routed or rejected. So that scenario won't work on the old inbox, but all these validations will work on the new home page as we saw right now. So that's how we have implemented the pre-route and pre-reject Swift rules on the inbox and home page. Another small update which we have done for the start task. Now earlier these start task had buttons for close and open time entry. We have ensured that they have been renamed to close and reopen tasks. Essentially this is done to make sure there is no ambiguity on what the functionality is expected to do. Since they were indeed closing the task or the task assignment, we have renamed it to close or reopen task or task assignment. So wherever in your application you have a start task plan, the button names will now show up as close or reopen task. On the performance front, we have ensured that the task plan checkout check-in works faster, and the workflow work item updates are also much faster as part of the 3.0 release. We have done some performance tuning to ensure that updates happening on the task plan checkout and check-in do take lesser time for processing. So you will feel the difference after upgrading to 3.0 release. And finally, for those who have been using our new UI themes, for those customers, you would now be able to resize your screen to up to 2/3 of its maximum size, so that you are still able to use it. So earlier, if you were looking at let's say a resize screen, this is how it would show up. Basically the menus would come down, the dashboards would come jumbled up, the landing page itself would not load properly because of all the alignment issues. But now if you have updated to 3.0 and you're using our standard themes, now that will look much better. So in this case, what you can see here is that if you go inside any of your projects, you will see that the listing loads up. No matter how much you reduce the size, the pagination bar at the bottom sticks. If you go inside a dashboard, The dashboard also loads in such a manner that it gets resized as per the new window size. So the widgets are not overlapping each other. You are still able to read data quite well. And if you have a lot of menus inside your project, those will also come up under more. So in this case, my more menus comes up, and all the additional menus which could not be fit in because of the width of the window, those come up inside the more option. So that is how we have ensured that you, even when you have resized your window to up to 2/3 or, of the screen, you are still able to use it with the help of the scroll bars and the new responsiveness of the widgets and the internal work items. So this experience will be much better if you are using a full HD screen. So you will feel the difference if you are one of those users who tends to resize the window after while working on some other application in another window. So for those users, this will surely be a benefit. So that's all we had as part of the 3.0 announcements. I hope you liked all of these announcements. We would love to hear from you. We are continuing to make improvements in other areas of the application as well, most prominently the Agile module. So this release was mainly focused on making the configurators life easier with the help of the Smart Import and making the dashboard widget settings page much more user-friendly. So I'm sure you would like all these changes, and you would be able to get benefit out of these while you start using it on your servers. So I think we can close the session now. Thanks all for your time. Do let us know if you have any feedback. Thanks. Bye.